So the power of passive investing is excited to host great speakers today. We actually have two today. The title of the event is For Consideration When Creating Legacy Using Real Estate Investing. And Marc is our main presenter. He started his own company called Part-Time Investor LLC after being tired of the hype promoted by most of the real estate gurus. Marc presents valuable technical content with zero hype in all of his presentations and blog posts, including the advantages and disadvantages of every investment strategy discussed. Marc has a PhD in organic chemistry and makes decisions based on in-depth due diligence and detailed analysis. Marc achieved financial freedom through part-time investing, excellent strategic planning, data analysis, and fiscally conservative approach. This is only a tiny bit of the full Marc's biography, and I hope he's going to touch upon some of the other exciting moments of his biography and his background, because believe me, guys, there is much, much more to Marc than mentioned in these couple of sentences. Jim, who Marc asked to co-present with him on one of the considerations when creating legacy, is actually a CPA, a quite successful real estate CPA. He also have a quite extensive bio. He started his professional life as a chef. He later switched to accounting, and maybe if we have some time, we'll ask him to share his journey from one to the other. But he's been a real estate CPA for many, many years and has a lot of achievements. He's done a lot for the real estate community of, I believe it's Southern New Jersey or Central Jersey. Marc, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, absolutely right.
To me, all of it is south, you know. South of Bergen County is south. But anyway, in his spare time, Jim enjoys spending time with his wife, teenage daughter. He also enjoys talking about real estate, and that's why he's going to be joining us today. He's also a student of history, baseball history, talking and silent picture comedian history, and local Delaware Valley history. He's an avid traveler. He likes to take pictures. He also can speak and read Spanish, Vietnamese, and Hebrew, and he traveled to tons of states and has been to tons of countries, including Vietnam, where he's been 8 times. We will briefly touch upon the typical disclaimer. We're not selling anything. This is for educational purposes only. Please consult with your CPAs, attorneys, and other professional advisors. The usual housekeeping, please keep yourself on mute. Feel free to post your questions in the chat or ask them at the end of the presentation. Just unmute yourself and ask our presenters. Our next event is also supposed to be a fun one. It's technology's growing role in multifamily property management. So we'll have property management team members talk about the leverage of technology in their day-to-day business. If you want to reach myself or my co-host Matt, this is our contact information. Feel free to do so. And these are the 4 considerations for creating a legacy that Matt is going to go through. So I'm not going to leave this on. I'm just going to stop sharing and pass the floor to Marc. Marc, please, the floor is yours. We're excited and thrilled to have you presenting to us today.
Well, thank you very much, Alina. Thank you for that great introduction. And also thank you for the opportunity to speak to this group. So tonight we're going to talk about 4 considerations when creating legacy using real estate investing. And this is these are my biased opinions, and that's all they are. They are their opinions. I'll show some data, and stick around to number 4 because that's there'll be some surprising things I think in there. That's the best graphic I found here with the little hand inside the big hand. So that I think we'll talk about some of our legacy. Just a little bit about myself, not much of a commercial here, but I am a part-time investor. Like Alina said, I have a PhD in organic chemistry. That's my primary occupation. That's my claim to fame. written 4 books in the field of phase transfer catalysis that we will not talk about tonight. I've given lectures in more than 300 cities in 39 countries, not on Zoom, actually in person. So that's what I do for my active investment, for my active income, and I love it. It's just fascinating to do breakthrough science. It's really fantastic. However, science is excellent for active income and for self-actualization on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it's not enough to basically do retirement or generate passive income. So at age 50, I started to become a serious part-time investor. I dabbled a little bit since 1987, but really since about age 50, that's when I got more serious about it. And as a part-time investor, I only do 1 to 2 deals per year. Actually, I did a small calculation. I bought houses or single-family homes over an 11-year period. I bought 16 of them, so that comes out to be about 1.5 per year. And it took me at this extremely slow rate. It took me 11 years to achieve financial freedom without driving myself crazy, because my time and my happiness is much more important than my money, as we're going to talk about a little bit later. Of course, I'm an international speaker on the phase transfer catalysis circuit. Believe it or not, there's quite a lot of interest in that. We won't go into all that stuff. And I'm a national speaker on the real estate circuit. We're talking about full-time income from part-time investing. I've got a 25-hour Smarter Investing Home Study course, which I'm not selling tonight. But if somebody does want a copy of the free ebook, Which Real Estate Investment Strategy is Best for You, you can go to parttimeinvestors.com and download it. Okay. I also have a disclaimer. While I am a successful part-time real estate investor, I'm not an attorney, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a licensed financial advisor, not a licensed psychologist, not a licensed mortgage broker, none of that kind of stuff. So please do not make any decisions or take any actions based in whole or in part on the content of this presentation. No investment advice, legal advice, tax advice, mortgage advice, psychological advice is being given here. Consult with licensed professionals in your state before making any investment. I do have to disclose that I'm a licensed New Jersey real estate salesperson. Not proud of it, but that's what I have to disclose it. Okay, let's get right into this. So what are the 4 considerations? And by the way, consideration number 2, hopefully Jim Kennedy will be joining us. And if Jim is available, then he'll be doing number 2 out of the 4. If not, I can sort of wing it a little bit. I prepared a little bit for it anyway. So the number 1 reason when creating a legacy with real estate investing, which I assume everybody online here probably is very much aware, is that real estate investing is the surest, slowly but surely, method to create wealth. And just in case we have a few newer investors online, I'll just go through a little bit about why that is. And I'm talking about single-family home rentals. I'm not talking about large apartment complexes. I will talk about those a little bit later in the presentation. But if you want to, if somebody, let's say, is just starting out and they're starting in their 30s or 40s or even 50 years old, like I did, you buy 1 single-family home rental per year over a 10-year period with a 20-year mortgage, and you can actually achieve financial freedom. It's not that hard. Nothing is ever trivial, but it is a very extremely practical way of doing this. So this is a house that I bought, I think, in 2014 to 2015. I bought it for $56,100. By the time I fixed it up and did everything in there, it was $96,000 was invested in it. Today, that house, if you wanted to buy it at a discount, it would be about $120,000. And that's the all-in cost to buy, fix, and rent. Today would be about $120,000. ARV is $150. Actually, right now it's probably around $160, $170. This is in South Jersey. This is a small 1,060 square foot, 3-bedroom, 1-bath with a 20-year loan. Then typically $300 to $500 per month per door, or for the house, a positive cash flow. My cash flow for this was in the $450 to $500 range, actually. And this is in South Jersey. People say, "Oh, you can't cash flow single-family home rentals in South Jersey." Well, you can, because of the high property taxes. In South Jersey, when I talk about South Jersey, I'm talking about South. See, for me, Alina, you said anything below Bergen County or South Jersey. For me, anything north of Trenton is way North Jersey. So, yeah, so I invest mostly in Camden County, but some in Gloucester County. I live in Gloucester County. Actually, the tornado should be right now in Camden County, and it just passed through Gloucester County. But since the properties are very affordable down here, in the southern, through deep South Jersey, then that's why we can cash flow very, very nicely. And then, once you have 10 paid off free and clear rentals, then, the cash flow on rentals, on free and clears here in South Jersey, they go easily above $1,000 a month. And I actually had a bunch free and clear. I think I only have one free and clear left at this point, because we'll talk about, I might talk a little bit about how I exited more recently. So, if you have 10 paid off free and clear rentals, at least in South Jersey, then you would have more than $12,000 a month of passive income. And that's after increases. And the net worth after the 20 years would be, well, it would be over $2 million. I mean, right now, I guess 10 of the houses that I just showed, that would be about 1.7 million, 1.6 to 1.7 million. And, with appreciation, it would be $2 million. So it's really not a problem to achieve more than $10,000 a month of positive cash flow, $1 million, $2 million in net worth. And since we're talking about legacy, it's the net worth really that we're focusing on a little bit more. So this is not rocket science. This is one house at a time. Now, I know a lot of the people online here today are big time investors. It's, we'll do 50 units, we'll do 1,000 units. I'm talking about single family homes, nice and slow. I don't know if it's Russian to say shoya shoya, but that's what we would say in Israel. Nice and slow, one house a year. It was very, very easy to achieve.
Mark,
yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to pick out one point you made. Was there any reason why, any background reasoning why the 20-year loan assumption was on there? Because traditionally 15 and 30 are kind of the traditional options. Was there any kind of math or any reasoning behind your 20-year assumption there?
Yeah, the 20-year is, at least when I was buying houses with financing, and actually the one which I just showed you was the last house I bought with financing. I haven't needed financing since 2015. Then I would always buy with the local portfolio lender. So I'll just go into maybe a bit more detail. And also, since I don't know if Jim is on yet, do you know if Jim is on yet, by the way?
He's not on yet.
Not on yet. Okay, that means I'll have to be speaking. Okay, which is not a problem. These houses I would do with construction loan financing. So a good example is this house over here. Let me just go through the numbers that I have to remember. I bought it for $56,100. It was a HUD home. Today it's hard to buy HUD homes, but in those days it wasn't that much of a problem. And then the renovations were totaled. Well, I remember I had to bring $25,500 to the table, and so the loan that I took was $70,600. Let's say $70,000. So that loan covered 70% of the purchase price and 100% of the repair estimate, which is a really good way of doing these things. It was just very good. And those with local portfolio lenders, so I don't go to Wells Fargo or something like that. In this case, I went with First Colonial Community Bank. I did, I think, 4 construction loans with them, maybe 5. And they did a 20-year amortization, and that's what they liked. So okay. A lot of the 30-year, before the crash in 2008 to 2011, I was getting 30-year mortgages on rental properties. These days, actually, I don't know what it is these days, but I know until a few years ago, and once the entire lending, everything changed in April of 2009. The subprime came out in, I think it was February of 2008, and then the prime problem happened by June of 2008, and then everything went downhill. It took the regulators until April of 2009 to change everything. So at that point, you couldn't get any 30-year mortgages for investors anymore. Maybe it's gone back to that now. Maybe you can these days. But I know as of maybe 3-4 years ago, these were still 20-year mortgages. Now you could do 15-year mortgages, and I refinanced the properties with the 15-year mortgages, and paid them off early. So 15-year mortgages is possible, but the 30-year mortgages, and again, I'm not a licensed mortgage broker, so I don't know. But 30-year mortgages, for investors is not something that people would do these days. Now, when I finance, I might talk about it later. I'm not sure, depending what the kind of questions and answers we have. I have been doing seller financing of rentals to my tenants, and I've done 3 of those. And in all 3 of them, I did 8% 30-year amortization. but that's because I like the cash flow and I don't like to give away too much equity every month. It's only for a $200,000 loan, it comes up about $134 a month. And the rest of the $1,467 per month, which is what $200,000 is at 8% for 30 years, then all the rest of that is interest, which is really good. So yeah, anyway, the short answer to the question is that when I was doing them, 20-year loans is what construction loans were going for.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Well, if Jim is not on, then I'm going to have to wing it a little bit here. So this is the second part of creating a legacy. The second consideration out of 4 when you create a legacy with real estate investing is taxes. And they say that the 2 surest things are death and taxes. Well, gee whiz, we're talking about death and taxes. I mean, nobody wants to talk about either one of them. Well, now we're talking about both of them. So it turns out that there are 3 types of taxes when somebody dies. There's estate tax, which is federal, and then there's inheritance tax. Let me make sure I get this right. That there's estate tax and there's inheritance tax. Estate tax is a tax that's paid on the value of the estate. So the estate sort of pays that. The inheritance tax is actually a different thing. An inheritance tax, let me disclaim one more time. I am not a CPA. I'm not an accountant. I'm not licensed in anything. I am a chemist. Never take tax advice from a chemist. Okay, but having said that, I studied this a little bit, and the inheritance tax is the tax paid by the heirs. So let's say you have $10 million that you're of your estate, but you're giving $5 million to each child, let's say, then the children don't pay on the 10 million, they pay on the 5 million that they get if they get that. So there's estate tax and there's inheritance tax. The estate tax is on the estate, the inheritance tax is on the heirs. I just pulled up here a copy, the top portion of Form 706, which is the estate tax return for federal, and then what's this IRT, whatever it's called there, and that's the resident decedent tax. That's the inheritance tax for the state of New Jersey. Since we're in New Jersey, I assume we have also people from New York. There'll be other forms for that. I don't know if we have people from Pennsylvania and from other places, but every state has got its own taxes. Now, the Secure Act, and then I'm going to talk a little bit in a moment. I'll talk about 1031 exchange, as well as the self-directed Roth IRA and self-directed Roth 401k, which is my favorite. I love the Roth. That's the best from my opinion, for not only creating a legacy, but also for creating retirement. I'm 67 years old, so this is a great, this Roth thing is just fantastic for me. In any case, so in the United States, the tax before the Secure Act, which came out in December of 2017, the federal taxes on an estate were $5.49 million, about $5.5 million. And then the Secure Act, that when it came along, it increased that to $11.7 million. Oh, and I see Matthew's got some lightning outside. Anyway, that's Matthew Holland. Anyway, so that went to $11.7 million, and but it sunsets unless something changes. That's going to sunset on December 31st of 2025. So on January 1st, 2026, it's going to go back to this $5.49 million adjusted for inflation. So let's say $6 million or something like that. So, I mean, there's a way to avoid that, and that is to die before December 31st, 2025. Quite frankly, that is not a good estate planning strategy, unless you decide that's what you want. So I know my calendar goes out to me and being into my 90s. So because I have things scheduled on my Google Calendar, so they have to happen. I have no intention of dying before that deadline, and so we'll see what happens. So so for a lot of you, it doesn't matter if it's 6 million or 12 million, but for some of us, it does make a difference. So and that's the federal exemption. So that means, so let's say it goes back to 5.5 million. Let's say it goes back down to $6 million in 2026. Then if you anticipate that your estate is going to be $6 million or less, you don't really have to worry too much about the federal taxes. In New Jersey, we used to have an exemption for $675,000, and then the heirs would have to pay above that, and that was eliminated just a few years ago. So right now in New Jersey, apparently, and again, I am not an accountant, you'll have to look this up, and this is being recorded. So if somebody watches this in the year 2031 or whatever it is, then you really will need to look up whatever the tax tables are, whatever the tax laws are in your state at that time, because these things change all the time. So so right now in New Jersey, actually, there's really no inheritance tax that I know of. So if you're under 6 million, actually, you probably won't be paying the federal estate tax. And if you are living in, and by the way, so let's say that you have 2 kids, and one lives in New Jersey, one lives in Pennsylvania, and they get, and each one gets 50% of your estate. They're both going to be paying different taxes. So that's quite interesting. Well, it's not very interesting, but it's something that's worthwhile to know. So if Jim were here right now, we would get a much more qualified answer, but certainly taxes is a consideration. When we talk about 4 considerations for using real estate investing to create a legacy, then this tax is definitely one of the considerations. Now, 1031 exchange is interesting. Oh, and yeah, let's talk about 1031 exchange, and we'll talk about a thing called stepped-up basis. The 1031 exchange, and I assume that everybody or most people here will know what that is, but basically, you can defer taxes by. So let's say you buy a property. Let's say we actually had investors in our RIA, and our real estate investor association in South Jersey, that were buying properties in Camden like for $10,000, and then fixing them up for $20,000. They have $30,000 all in, getting $1,200 a month rent. So the positive cash flow is actually very, very good with the construction loans. And then today those properties might be worth $100,000. So if somebody were to sell a rental property today, then they would have to pay capital gains on the, let's say, $100,000 minus whatever they put in. So the purchase price of $10,000 plus the let's say $30,000 or $20,000 of renovations they had. But instead of paying the tax, you can do a 1031 exchange. You can sell the property. There's a whole thing with qualified intermediaries. There's a whole process that goes on, but you can actually roll over that money without paying the tax. Now you defer the tax to a later time by buying other real estate or in kind or like kind. And then as a legacy, as an estate planning tactic, it's defer, and die, which means that let's say you had 10 rentals, each one you bought for $10,000, and now they're worth $100,000, and they're worth $100,000. You've got 10 of these things. It's $1 million of stuff. At death, then the heirs pay on the stepped-up basis of $100,000, which is interesting. So defer, and die is another way. Is the way some people characterize 1031 exchange. Now, I actually didn't have a problem with defer, but I have a problem with die. It's just not. I don't really feel like dying so that my kids could have a tax benefit. So I personally didn't like the 1031 exchange. I actually liked a lot better the using my self-directed 401k or self-directed IRA to defer taxes and not have to have qualified intermediaries and all that other kind of stuff. But people that want to, they can do defer, and die. One other thing which I don't like, and that is that taxes, and I won't go into again the whole thing on taxes here, but like with the 401, because I have a self-directed 401k, and people say, oh, 401ks are great. You get to put away pre-tax money, and then you take it out later in retirement when you're in a lower tax bracket. Well, if you take a look at the tax brackets, I don't know about you guys, I do not intend to be in poverty when I retire. So that's not part of my plan. So therefore, I actually intend to have a higher income, or if I ever, whatever, I'm not sure what retirement is. I'm doing rewirement right now. I'm rewiring myself. I don't really retire, but I never intend for my tax rate to go down. I don't intend to have a lower income later on, and I'm already 67 and my income has just been going up. So the reason why people talk about this is because when the 401k came out, and the IRA, well, the 401k came out, I think it was in the 70s, the highest tax bracket was 90%. And then, yeah, when you retire, you might be in the 25, 28% bracket. But right now, things have been compressed. I mean, a lot of people are in the, well, these days, 22 to 24 to 32% tax bracket. They don't have any 90s anymore. The highest tax bracket is just under 40%, I think. So the 1031 exchange is a way sort of getting around some of the taxes, not all of the taxes. Again, Jim Kennedy would have gone through a lot more than I would have gone through, but let's just say that taxes is definitely a consideration when creating a legacy. One thing which I do want to mention is the self-directed IRA or self-directed 401k, and more correctly, the self-directed Roth IRA or self-directed Roth 401k, because I have my consulting company, which is called PTC Organics, doesn't matter. I have this consulting company where I go around the world teaching people how to save millions of dollars. I've helped companies save more than $200 million, and I stopped counting about 15 years ago. Then I make active income through that. It's an S corporation, so I set up a 401k or a solo K, as some people call it, and I set that up in 2007. And so it's a 401k. It has a Roth component. The Roth is much, much more important to me. Roth money is magic money. It's after-tax money. You pay on the seed. I think I paid taxes maybe on the first $150,000 and the next $500,000 or $600,000 so far. I will never pay a penny unless they repeal the Roth. And my goal is to get to $1 million on my self-directed Roth, and I probably will get there not in the too distant future. I still have several hundred thousand my pre-tax self-directed 401k. But just to show you an example of two single-family home rentals, and you can see the pictures over there. They're both actually in Sicklerville. They're about a quarter of a mile apart. And we, in a different presentation, I have how I got this $237,000. We won't go into that now, but I got to get to the point where I had $237,000 in my Roth, and I did a strategy which I call buy, fix, rent, sell. So what you do is you buy you buy a distressed property in a normal market. It's either a buyer's market or a balanced market, not in a seller's market like today, where you can, because in a balanced market or a buyer's market, you can buy at a significant discount. Like you saw before, the property that I bought at $56,100 and it was worth $150, then that's a good kind of buy. And even though I had a total of $96,000 into it, we still had quite a lot of instant equity in there. So I bought these two properties. The one on top is a 4-bedroom, 1,886 square foot house. And the one on the bottom is also a 4-bedroom. And that's, I think, if I remember correctly, about 1,600 or 1,690 square foot. So the total investment for the two houses together was $237,000. And that includes the purchase price and the fix, and then the renovations up to the time of rental. I think the one on top, I know I bought that for $80,000. When I say I directed my self-directed Roth 401k to buy it in its name. And the one on the bottom was $76,000. So by the time I put in all the renovations, the total between the two houses was $237,000. Rented those houses. Each one had more than $1,000 a month of positive cash flow. And then after 5 years, I sold them, or my self-directed Roth 401k sold them. And the net was $524,000. And this is just two houses. Just two houses. So you can see how with just two single-family home rentals, I was able to increase the tax-free net worth of my Roth by over $300,000. And I've done several of those. What's really nice is that the one on top, my Roth just sold on May 27th of this year, and I had another one which I just sold on. Then my pre-tax 401k sold on June 30th. So as of June 30th, I have no more single-family home rentals in my 401k, in my self-directed 401k or Roth 401k, which is a major milestone that I've been working for. But it was not that hard to build this. And by the way, the money, the one from the one on top, I just redeployed $250,000 of that into a fund that similar to the kind of funds that Alina has, and it's doing well. We didn't get the first distribution yet. That comes, this will come quarterly, but it's going to be a very, very good return, competitive with the cash on cash returns of these properties. So, using a self-directed Roth 401k or a self-directed IRA or self-directed Roth IRA is really important. I will, before I move on, I do want to just mention one thing. There's another house that I bought that's almost identical to the house that you see here on the bottom. And it is 100 yards away from this one. And I bought that one in my self-directed 401k, in the pre-tax 401k. That one I had 112,000 all in, and this is the one that I just seller financed to the tenant on June 30th. It was for 208,000. So I held that one for about 6 years, or my self-directed, my pre-tax 401k held it for about 6 years, and it made what, $96,000 plus all the positive cash flow. So it was a good investment. The internal rate of return is actually very good. However, what I don't like about it is, and from both an estate planning, a legacy standpoint, as well as a retirement standpoint, is that I really should have done a Roth conversion on the 112,000 back in 2015 when I bought it, when my self-directed 401k bought it, because now the more success, this is one of these funny things, the more successful you are as an investor with pre-tax money, the more tax liability you create later on. So now if I want to convert the money, so let's just go through the details there. So I sold it, my pre-tax self-directed 401k sold it for 208,000. It was $8,000 down and $200,000 with an 8% 30-year mortgage. So now if I want to take that money out, I now have to pay the taxes on the positive cash on the interest and the $208,000. Wouldn't it have been a lot better to have paid the taxes on the 112,000? But it's like ripping off a Band-Aid, because to pay tax on the 112,000, I probably would have to pay $30,000 or $40,000 in money, in real money, and really after-tax money. But then look at the back end. The back end, I'd be saving huge amounts in taxes. So when it comes to creating a legacy, using real estate investing, the guideline would be like always, you try to use as much Roth money as possible. Now I'm just looking at some of the faces I see, the two Matts, for example, and you guys are a lot younger than I am. Alina's younger than I am too, but you guys are younger. So you really should fund the Roth as much as possible and do as much Roth conversions as you can afford to do as early as possible in your life. And also before the tax rates go back up, the sunset, like if you're in the 22 or 24% or 32% tax bracket now, those tax brackets are going up. So doing Roth conversions right now and investing in real estate is really good. And I did Roth conversions, galore in 2015 and 2016, 2014, and boy, the returns are really, really great. On my way to $1 million in the Roth, just in the Roth portion. Okay, now we're going to get into the softer issues of the considerations for creating a legacy using real estate investing. And number 3 is a soft issue, and number 4 is a real soft issue, which I think are absolutely crucial. So number 3 is management. Depending how old your kids are, and I have adult kids. My 2 kids are in their 30s, and I got grandkids. And when I think about my kids, and one of them is a chemist, it's interesting. I'm a chemist married to a reading specialist, and my older son's a chemist married to a reading specialist. We won't go through all the Oedipus complex stuff all there. And my younger son is a teacher, married to a teacher, like my wife is a teacher. I'm not sure that the chemist and the teacher are really thrilled about inheriting single-family home rentals. What I did here is I copied off the website and I haven't done an eviction since about, I think, either 2011 or 2012, because I got really good at screening tenants. You don't have to make that many mistakes to learn that tenant screening is more important than anything. And I have a whole 90-minute lecture just on tenant screening. So I downloaded the form. I put your heir as the plaintiff and your tenant as defendant. Do you really think that your kids want to do evictions? Do you think they really want to manage single family home rentals? Oh, if your kids, so your kids might not want to, or they might not have the skills to, or might not want to. So now I'm dating myself. There's Mr. Furley, who is from Three's Company, who was the landlord managing the property for his brother Bart. And if your kids will be like Mr. Furley, probably not a good idea to have them manage rentals. So I think that building a legacy, a financial legacy using real estate investing, especially single family homes, and the reason why I focus on single family homes is there are two reasons. First of all, as a part-time investor, let me back up. I'm a member of South Jersey RIA, the Real Estate Investor Association. And I'm also a member of DIG, the Diversified Investor Group in Philadelphia. And I've given lectures around the countries at RIAs. There are about 70,000 members nationally. And about 5 to 10% of RIA members around the country are full-time investors. The rest are, and about 40 to 50% are part-time investors, and the rest never buy a property. They're wannabe investors. So there's 5 to 10 times more part-time investors than there are full-time investors. And part-time investors, especially me, like Alina said at the beginning, I'm a very conservative investor. I do deep due diligence. I do a lot of analysis. I only buy 1 or 2 homes a year, or do only 1 or 2 deals a year, but I do deep due diligence on them. And my returns, you can see I'm usually doubling my money in about 4 or 5 years, or better than that. So that's not bad. These are, especially if I'm doing them in my Roth, where it's all, it's tax-free. So it's really good. So when it comes to creating the legacy, or creating the pile of money, let's say, or creating the asset value, I use single family homes as a part-time investor, because the returns are better, let's say, than investing in syndications. I'm right now invested in several syndications, and I know that my returns are lower, but it's also very, very truly passive. So that's what we're going to talk about here in a second, which really means that. So what my strategy has been to create the legacy is I did these 16 single family home rentals not all at one time. I never had more than 10 rentals at any given moment. That was a happiness decision. I never wanted to manage more than 10 tenants at one time. And so I built, I won't go into the number, but certainly north of $1 million of net worth by buying and renting and eventually selling these single family homes. And then, so I built it with single family home rentals because it was easy to do while being having full-time occupation outside of real estate. Build $1 million, $2 million or more with, just 16 homes. And then in preparation for my expiration or demise, or, whenever my kids become heirs, then I said to myself, you know what? I don't think they're going to want to manage this stuff. How can I find a way to truly be passive in my investing? And that's also when I saw Alina's great interview on the Camera Plan podcast, which was great. I was impressed with Alina. It was just immediate. Oh, this is great, So, and then I made contact with Alina, very, very impressed. And I can do flattery all I want, but it's not flattery. It's Alina's story is a great success story that we should all try to emulate. And then so I was looking for something that's truly passive. Anybody who says that rental real estate, single family home rental real estate is passive, they're sort of fooling themselves a little bit. Single family home self-managed real estate is semi-passive. It's, most of the houses are passive, but there are always a few that will not be exactly as passive as we want it to be. So it's really semi-passive. But when you start investing in funds like Alina's funds, like the Tempo Growth and Tempo Income funds, those are truly passive investments. I mean, not for Alina and Big Mike, but for the I guess the Class A shares, I think they might be called there. I think those are, that becomes truly passive investment. So as I'm building my legacy, part of my legacy plan was to divest out of single family home rentals that brought me to the really good financial freedom situation that I'm in now, and get into something before I'm too old redeploy into much more passive funds like apartment syndications, notes. I'm invested in some notes, and real estate income and growth funds. Like Alina has right now. I just invested in a land fund that has a 12% preferred return, and so these kind of funds. It's really good because then when my kids inherit them, then it'll be truly passive. Here's what I don't want to happen. I die. Let's just assume for a second that my kids love me, and will be in some amount of grief when I die. The last thing that they need is, oh man, look at these 9 rentals. I got to pay the property taxes. 3 of the tenants are not paying because of COVID. What about the water bills and the liens and all this kind of stuff? In the middle of grieving for me, they don't have to worry about where the next mortgage payment is coming from, or where the next insurance payment is going to, and all that kind of stuff. Now, I always had a list of all the, I don't know, and if you guys own single family homes, you really should have a book. Some of us call it the Big Exit book, but it should be a binder that has in it listed all the property addresses, the account numbers for the mortgages, the account numbers for the insurance, which bills are paid quarterly, which bills are paid monthly, which ones are paid annually, to who what are the addresses of these places, what are the name of the tenants, what are the telephone numbers of the tenants, what's the payment history of these tenants. All the stuff should be there so that if something happens to you, either your kids or a property manager or your milkman, depending on who your heirs are, will have enough information that they'll be able to pick up on that management. But what I like about the way that I've managed this is I only have 2 single family home rentals left, which is a great thing. And one of them, there's almost no management. I've had them for 15 years. They don't call for anything. I have to call them, to offer them, please, can I help you replace a door, replace a chandelier? I said, don't worry about it, which is really cool. And the positive cash flows are very, very good. So I only have 2 rentals left. And in the meantime, I've redeployed all this other money. As a matter of fact, I redeployed $450,000 in my Roth just in the last 2 months, which is really into truly passive investments. $250,000 went into this one fund, and then the other stuff went into some other truly passive investments that are totally managed by other people. By the way, if you have single family homes, people say, oh, we can make it passive, we can get a property manager. Let me tell you, when you have a property manager, you're typically handing over about 30% of your profit to the property manager, and then you still have to manage the property manager. Now, if you have large apartment complexes, different situation, you can get good property managers. But if you have single family home rentals, oh my God, it's really tough finding a really good property manager. No one will ever care about as much about your properties as you do. And no one will ever know as much about your properties than you do. So part of my legacy plan was to sell the single family home rentals and redeploy the proceeds into truly passive investments. Okay, now we're getting into consideration number 4. This is the softest one, although we'll talk a little bit about the hard facts about the money. And this has to do really to answer the big question is, what is your legacy? So, well, since this is an investor group, let's start talking about money, but I'm certainly I'm gonna be shifting away from money pretty soon. So the question is, what should be your legacy and how big should it be? Do you want your legacy to be a pile of coins or a pile of packets of $100 bills? That's the first question. Everybody has to decide how much legacy should be. So what I want to do now is I want to explain, and I sort of apologize for those of you who don't know Hebrew, but I'm going to teach you just a little bit of Hebrew right now. I spent 14 years, I lived in Jerusalem proper for 13 years, and there's an interesting concept that's just came out, actually just in the last few years, and it's called elephant and ram. So here's the way it goes. Now, I'm going to teach you 4 letters in the Hebrew language. So this is an elephant, as you can see, and the word in Hebrew for elephant is called pil. This is the first letter. Hebrew is written from right to left. So this is the first letter. It's the letter pei, and this is the yud, the small one. It's like the iota, and this is the lamed for L. So this spells out pil, and this is an abbreviation for something which I'll say in a second. This here is the word. The word for ram is ayal. This is aleph. By the way, for those of you who are familiar, the Hebrew alphabet starts with the letters Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet. That might sound like Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, and it does because Hebrew predated Greek. But anyway, this is the letter, whoops. So this is the letter Aleph, and here the same letter in the middle, Yud, and the same letter at the end, the Lamed. And this is called Ayal. The Yud, the one in the middle, stands for the word Yerusha, which means inheritance. And Lamed is Layiladim, for the children. So Yud Lamed is inheritance for the children. The word Pei, or the letter Pei, stands for the word Pachot, which means less. So elephant is less inheritance for the kids. Less inheritance for the kids. So if you're an elephant, then you have less inheritance for the kid. For a ram is Ayal, which is N. The Aleph stands for N, which means no inheritance for the kids. Okay, what does that mean? Well, are you a ram or are you an elephant? Do you want to leave something for the kids? Or do you want to say, you know what, let's just go to Vegas. I know how much money I've got. I know what my life expectancy is. I'm going to plan it out such that I'm going to blow it. I'm going to go on cruises and I'm going to go to the North Pole and I'm going to, and I'm going to go to Vegas. And if you're single, I won't even say the kind of things because it's being recorded. I don't want to get all, disgusting and everything. Some people want to say, you know what, I'm going to plan it out. I'm going to leave nothing for my kids. And some people say less for the kids. And it's almost never everything for the kids. Some people, that's what they do, everything for the kids. So my wife and I, we are elephants. We are peel. It's less inheritance for the kids. We want to enjoy ourselves. That's just the way that we want to do it. So is less inheritance for the kids or no inheritance for the kids? So that is part of the question: how big should your financial legacy be? And every person really has to decide, how much do you really want to leave the kids? But I have a bigger question. And the bigger question is, what is your truly lasting legacy? And this is a terrible thing to say for an investor group. But my biggest legacy is not money. Money is going to go away. My biggest legacy are my children's and grandchildren's core values and thought processes. Now, that's my opinion. An investor group, I bet you there's some people that disagree. It's like, no, money, 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 money. Well, that's just not me. My biggest truly lasting legacy are the ethics, integrity, respect, strategic thinking, and compassion for my kids and grandkids. By the way, if I leave them money, lots of money, and I don't teach them how to manage money, I don't teach them how to make decisions, I don't teach them how to do strategic thinking and strategic planning, I have sort of wasted that money. Or the kids are going to waste it. And anything that I denied myself during my lifetime, so, let's have bigger legacy for the kids. If I didn't teach them how to manage the money and how to manage their lives for happiness, then I'm not sure what I did on this earth for all that time. Excuse me a second, I just want to drink some water. Thank you for your patience. So this is my truly lasting legacy. And let's put that in the perspective of the money. But even before that, we all have other lasting legacies. We have lasting legacies on society and on people. Now, I happen to be a scientist. I happen to be a chemist, and there's a lot of impact to my work. And I know a lot of you think, chemists, guys, you guys pollute the environment. Well, we actually do a lot of good things. One of the projects that I worked on with a company called the Mercury Medical in Florida. So there's a patent that came out, I think, in 2013. A couple of years ago, I got this LinkedIn from the vice president of engineering, who was the first inventor on the patent, the last inventor on the patent. And he said, I didn't even know this. So we worked on a carbon dioxide detector. It's not a carbon monoxide detector. Carbon dioxide, it's used in ambulances to find out if somebody's breathing instead of, you can save a lot of lives to know if somebody's breathing or not breathing properly. And fogging a mirror is really an extremely inefficient way of doing it. And it's not a very good analytical tool. So we developed this thing that responds within 0.1 seconds and a very, very low levels of respiration. And he says, we work together on, the project we work together is still helping save hundreds of thousands of lives each year. Well, that was nice to know. And the neonatal version, so when I die, lives are going to continue to be saved based on the technology that I developed. And you know what? I feel good about that. The money's going to be long gone 100 years from now. But these life-saving technology will still be there. And a more recent patent, about 2 years old now, which hopefully is going to be the subject of an IPO, which is going to add a zero to my net worth, which is going to add a zero to my legacy for my kids, is a patent that we have to take out sulfur from diesel. So again, that's the environmental impact is huge. We hope to reduce acid rain by a huge amount globally by doing this, because diesel, even though there's wind and solar and all this other kind of good stuff, renewable energies, diesel is not going to be going away anytime soon, especially in marine ships, because all the ships that take the goods from Shanghai to Los Angeles, you can't power those with wind or with solar. It's going to be it's either going to be the diesel fuel that they have or nuclear, which I know a lot of you want. So when we're talking about lasting legacy, the core values of my kids and impact of my work is much, much more important than the money. And there's other stuff, so this book, this phase transcatalysis book is actually the best-selling book. Believe it or not, there is such a thing as a best-selling book in phase transcatalysis, and it's been out since 1994, 651 pages. I invented a thing called the happiness score, and of course, these other books like which real estate investment strategy is best for you. Or I have another book. I've written 6 books, and another one is called We Buy Houses Sometimes. That one came out in 2008. That's a 500-page book. So these books last a long time. And like this book here, this phase transcatalysis book, and it came out in 1994 before the internet happened. So this book is located in libraries around the world. And that's a lasting legacy. Let's get back to money for a second. And before I give you this quote of mine, it's interesting that people, let's say that you're going to spend $6,000 a month. When you do the calculation, when you actually look, so I have a bunch of coaching clients that middle class and middle upper class, helping them get to their net worth of $2 million and passive income of $10,000 a month or more. Then when we look at their finances, typically, and the number is smaller than I thought, most middle class households, middle to even middle upper class households, spend between $5,000 and $7,000 a month on routine expenses. Like mortgage and hairdresser and gasoline and food and stuff like that. And that's after tax. So the pre-tax number is typically between $7,000 and $8,500 or so. So let's say it's $6,000 a month that you need. And if you're going to be retired for 25 years, which is 300 months, you do the calculation, $6,000 a month, forget about Social Security payments for a second, $6,000 a month for 25 years is $2.52 million, about $2.5 million. So if you add, let's say, another cushion for $500,000 for stuff that Medicare doesn't cover, or whatever emergencies you might have, nursing homes, whatever, then $3 million is about as much as you would ever need even if you got no Social Security whatsoever. So now the question is, let's say, so I'm in my 60s, and let's say my net worth, I'm not going to say what my net worth is, but let's say it was $3 million. I would not lift a finger or take any risk to go from 3.0 million to 3.1 million. Why? I have a lot of Andy Griffith to watch. I've only seen every episode of Andy Griffith 7 times. I want to see it an 8th time. I want to sit and watch TV. I don't want to make extra effort. I don't want to deal with more tenants. I don't want to take risk in some high risk, high return private equity. And I've got private equity deals, but I just don't want to make that much effort. I want to relax. And so the quote that I have here that my kids and grandkids are not happy to hear, although they understand it, I am not willing to lift a finger or take on any risk to create financial legacy beyond a certain net worth threshold and passive income threshold, since my most important legacy is the core values I instill in my kids and grandkids. Not an extra $1 million, not even an extra $100,000. So when it comes to creating a legacy, I think we need to ask ourselves, each person, and it's a different answer for every person, what is your legacy? What do you really want your legacy to be? There's the financial portion and the non-financial portion. And you can have plans for both. And by the way, if your kids are already in college or later, your ability to continue to affect their core values, that ship has probably sailed. So you really got to start when they're real young. And we're very proud of what we've done. You know, when my older son was he was the Eagle Scout, and my younger son was in the Peace Corps. So, you know, I think we did a good job with that. And then money, yep, and then money. We talk about money as well. So when we talk about how big your legacy should be, the way there's one more aspect of this before I sort of finish up. And this is also one of my presentations on how to achieve financial freedom through successful part-time investing. And I really see money in two different ways. I see income, cash flow, and net worth. So income, so cash flow, a lot of us have multiple streams of income. I mean, we're investors, so a bunch of us have multiple streams of passive income and active income. I still work as a chemist. I do, you know, consulting and development and licensing and stuff like that, which I love. It's just phenomenally interesting. You know, I got more than 3 dozen breakthroughs, and I'm really, you think I'm excited about what I'm talking about here. I'm really, you haven't seen passion until you've seen me talk about phase transcatalysis. Anyway, so we have multiple streams of income, and those are not holes in the bucket. Those are actual deliberate streams of outflow. So we have the inflow, multiple streams of income, and we have outflow, you know, like the mortgage and food and gasoline and hairdresser and cable TV bill and all those other kind of good stuff, insurance. And that, I think, should be for routine expenses. And then net worth are for special expenses. To be more exacting about it, the way that my wife and I have been managing our money in our 40 and a half, oh, it's gonna be 41 years of marriage. Oh, in 2 weeks from tonight. Oh, I gotta write this down before I forget. You know, if I forget, guys, hopefully you know this. You're not allowed to forget your wedding anniversary. So it's not on my calendar. Anyway, we'll be married 41 years in 2 weeks from tonight. And by the way, she owned me free and clear after 30 because it was an FHA marriage. No, that's not that. Anyway, so the way we've been managing our money is that we always looked at our income, cash flow, whether it's passive income or active income. Now it's passive income. That our passive income, well, financial freedom is when your passive income exceeds your daily expenses, which is food, shelter, transportation, insurance, utilities, hairdresser, all that kind of good stuff, you know, cable TV. And the liquid portion of our net worth is what we use to cover special expenses like college or vacations or weddings. Now, so for example, let's say we buy a car. Let's say we buy a car for $30,000 and we trade in whatever. So let's say we have $20,000 that we have to buy the car. We take $5,000 down payment and a $15,000 loan. So the $300 a month for the $15,000, that's routine expenses. And the $5,000 down payment, that's special expenses. So we use, the way we manage our money in our household is we use the liquid portion of our net worth for our special expenses, and the passive income from, you know, real estate, in our case now Social Security, we use that to cover our daily expenses, our routine expenses. So our household routine expenses are about $6,500 a month, which is about $8,000 pre-tax. So if we have $10,000 a month of passive income, we're golden. You know, we're good. We have a bit of we even have a 15% cushion. And then the liquid portion of our net worth, that's what goes for all the other stuff. Now, we already paid for the kids' college. We were paid for the weddings and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, we have the best Medicare supplement plan. We're both over 65 now. So it's Plan G. So we paid for that. So we don't expect to have any special medical expenses. So we're in pretty good shape. And here's the thing. When your passive income exceeds your routine expenses, there is no need to use your net worth except for special expenses. What that means for legacy is that if you never have to touch your net worth to pay for stuff, then you preserve your net worth. As a matter of fact, your net worth is going to grow because you're investors. This meetup is for investors. So as long as you can design your life, your financial life around having a truly passive income that exceeds your routine expenses, then the only time you need to touch your net worth is for special expenses. Therefore, your legacy, and once you get to some level, you know, let's say your routine expenses are $10,000 a month, and you've got $13,000 a month of passive income with a bit of a cushion. And that includes the passive income you get from Alina's Tempo income fund, okay? That pays out, I guess I would assume pays out quarterly distributions. Then you don't have to touch the net worth part of it, and therefore your legacy can grow, because part of Alina's fund is that there's an income portion to it, and every once in a while there are liquidity events where you get these extra back-end kickers, and that just adds to your net worth. So the advantage of investing, and Alina doesn't know that I was planning to say this kind of stuff, but it's these kind of funds. The reason why when you get to my age in your 60s, where, okay, we've made enough money to live off of, the beauty about having an income fund that has a growth component is you can use the income part to really fund your daily expenses, and the growth part to grow your net worth. So I love these kinds of funds. And then the question is, what is the preferred return? What is the growth? Or you can have, Alina also has a growth fund where there aren't quarterly distributions, but the growth is bigger. So that's why it's really worthwhile to know these things. And if for those of you who are not yet at the situation that you can invest in Alina's fund, and by the way, Alina didn't say, hey, plug my funds. She has no clue I was going to say any of this. Actually, I'm trying to look at the body language there to see, right, Alina, right? We didn't say I was going to say anything about it. I wasn't even planning to say anything about it. It just
we
came
did,
out.
Mark, and thank you. I appreciate all the compliments, but let's concentrate on the legacy stuff.
On the legacy, okay. So with the legacy part is in my never humble opinion, again, I was born in New York and raised in Israel. I'm genetically capable of having humble opinions. My never humble opinion, the income part of investments covers the routine expenses, and then the growth part of investments increases the net worth, and that's where the legacy increases. So to summarize, in my never humble opinion, there are four major considerations for using real estate investing to create a legacy. One, real estate investing is the surest path to create wealth. It just is. If somebody has a sure way, that's good. Now, you might get higher returns in crypto, okay, or private, or doing Shark Tank deals, but those are not, nothing's guaranteed. But the probability of success in real estate, if you do proper due diligence like I did, the success rate in real estate is about 95% if you do good due diligence. Where in Shark Tank deals, it's well under 50%, and Bitcoin, who knows, or Ethereum, which is probably better. But so the first consideration, using real estate to create a legacy, it's the surest path to create wealth, which means legacy. Then you got the taxes, which are on the downside or might be negative. And one way to get around that is, like the way that I did it, is create a Roth. A Roth is phenomenal. Management is an extremely important consideration when using real estate investment to create a legacy, and that if your kids are not thrilled or not passionate about managing things like single family home real estate, you probably want to, and again, I'm not giving advice, I suggest for your consideration, that's all this is, consideration. I suggest for your consideration to think about transitioning out of managing real estate into much more passive real estate investing, or investing outside of real estate. And then I think the biggest and most important aspect or consideration when creating a legacy using real estate investing is, what is your true legacy? Is it really money? Is it outside of money? And if it is money, how much are you willing to do to create a legacy beyond a certain threshold, because you have to live your life? And again, just for my contact information, there's my telephone number, 856-432-2292. You can reach me, Mark with a C, Mark spelled with a C, at parttimeinvestors.com. You can get a free copy of the book, Which Real Estate Investment Strategy is Best for You, at parttimeinvestors.com. And I do coaching and training. I'm not selling that kind of stuff right now, but I just did want to let you know what my contact information is. So I think I kept maybe around an hour, not too much more than that. And you can see it's not hard to get me to talk. So if you want, I'll be glad to take your questions.
Mark, this was amazing. Thank you so much. We appreciate you taking the time to do it, and even cover the tax component, which you weren't prepared to do. You were hoping that Jim could join us, but hopefully Jim and his family are okay. And
yes, I hope so.
Thank you for covering his piece as well. We appreciate that.
Sure.
Folks, again, feel free to type your questions or just unmute and ask. While people are thinking or thinking to type their question, I'll ask you one. So, Mark, and we potentially may have talked about this, but more or less for the benefit of others, how have you been able to incorporate your chemistry knowledge and experience into the real estate investing?
Yes. Oh, yeah. That's a very good question. Obviously, I'm very analytical. And when I do, I'm an R&D guy. I do breakthrough technology with these more than 36 breakthroughs, actually more than 40 of them at this point. And what's interesting in R&D is that we're taking, sort of like Shark Tank, we're taking investments, typically $1 million or more, and we're converting those into very high return ventures, I guess. So one thing which when I give lectures to R&D management, because I also do R&D management consulting, and I tell the R&D managers, they're so surprised to hear us because they think they're chemists and engineers. I tell them that the #1 skill that they have developed is risk management, right? Because what you do is you take a look at a project, you look at the potential profit, you then try to estimate the probability of success, you multiply the probability of success times the potential profit, and then that's how you can prioritize which projects to work on and which ones not to work on. Once you are good at risk management, moving over to real estate is very easy. And I think the same thing is true if you're in financial, let's say you're a financial analyst, or you're some entrepreneur, you're a venture capital or something like that. Once you learn how to manage risk by let me go back into chemistry. The projects that I work on are always projects that there's no precedent in the history of humankind. People come to me and my company when they've had a dozen chemists working on something for a half a year, they can't solve the problem, and they want to achieve low cost, high performance green chemistry, which is environmentally good, and then I get the hardest projects. So when I get these kind of projects, the probability of success is typically less than 50%, and so the amount of due diligence in chemistry, when you're trying to do a breakthrough that's never done in the history of humankind, you cannot do enough due diligence to say this is going to work. In real estate, if you do the kind of deep due diligence that we're used to doing in science, I'm talking about true science, not the stuff you see on TV, but true science, the probability of success in real estate investing, I'm guessing, is around 95%, because there might be some environmental cleanup that you might have to do that you really didn't know about from a neighboring property, or God knows what, that happens. But in real estate investing, you can do due diligence. If I'm investing in an apartment complex, and right now I'm invested in 2 in Panama City, 1 in Atlanta. I invested in some greenhouses and orange groves in Paraguay. By the way, when I say I'm talking about my self-directed Roth 401k. So these are all the investments I just talked about are in my self-directed Roth 401k. And you can do due diligence. Actually, the one in Paraguay, it took me a year for them to convince me that I should do it, because I was doing due diligence and I found that the corruption in Paraguay is really tough. And finally, eventually, I felt that the risk was worth the return. So if you're a scientist, if you're an engineer, if you're a financial analyst, if you do anything that has anything to do with risk, then what you do is you learn how to do deep due diligence. And I think when people are not successful in real estate investing, and I see this in the real estate investor associations where you have a lot of newbies, it's because they're in a job, especially if they're a union kind of job, where they're used to other people are doing the due diligence, and they get paid for hour or whatever it is, then they might not be skilled at risk management. But if you have any exposure to risk management for any period of time, you're used to doing due diligence, and what the due diligence does, it minimizes the risk. Now, a lot of scientists and engineers suffer from analysis paralysis, because they say, well, we want to be 99.99% sure. When I get to the 90 to 92% probability of success, sometimes 95, that's when I pull the trigger. So the way you're supposed to do investing, like most people, is ready, aim, fire. The way some investors, newbies, they do ready, fire, aim. Not a great strategy. They do a lot of evictions when they do ready, fire, aim. analysis paralysis is ready, aim, 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 and they never pull the trigger. What I do ready, aim, 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 fire. Notice I do deeper due diligence than most people, but then I do pull the trigger. And so those are the lessons that I've taken from managing R&D to real estate. And then the other thing which I've done is I use statistical methods. Until a few months ago, so most of us are in New Jersey tax records was the absolute greatest thing in the world. I could create mailing lists for free. I could do subdivision market analysis. I did all kinds of, I actually have a training thing where, because I invented this in 2005, how to use New Jersey tax records for many, many different types of things. How to create mailing lists of people that have a high probability of having a lot of equity in their house in 2015. Now, of course, a lot of people have equity in their houses. So I developed some statistical methods for basically because this is what we do as chemists. If we don't have a tool, we invent a tool for it. But that's more rare. But I think for those of you who have done risk management and those of you who are investors, I think you know the better due diligence you do, the better it is. And due diligence means, especially when it comes to investing in funds, there are two types of due diligence. Either the due diligence on the PPM, on the private placement, on the actual deal or the actual fund, and then you do due diligence on the people. And again, without overly promoting here, Alina, the due diligence, Alina and I, we talked a few times on Zoom, plus the initial interview. And for those of you who know her, I mean, ethics, just everything, knowledge, track record, it's all there. So I feel very comfortable investing in Alina. So then it's just a question of the fund. That was my answer. Long answer, always.
Thank you, Mark. Folks, anyone else who wants to ask a question? Go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, Lena. Hey, Mark. Mark, that was great. Thank you. I'm a former chemist myself, believe it or not. So
a recovering chemist. A recovering chemist.
Exactly. Yes. It's kind of two-part question here. So, first part, this is in respect to seller financing. So, do you get requested a lot from buyers if you can do seller financing, or is it more of just you're offering it?
Yeah, so it's more than I'm offering it, and that's a really good question. The people that so the way I do seller financing, I don't seller finance to anybody. Mm-hmm. I seller finance to tenants, and seller finance to tenants is a very interesting exit strategy for rentals. Mm-hmm. And I do not seller finance to tenants unless they've had several years of perfect on-time payments with me. Mm-hmm. Through ACH.
Gotcha.
ACH. So I use clearnow.com. So I train them, I program their minds to get to the point where they know that they have to have so many payments in a row through ClearNow, and then they get used to this. So they're programmed. So when I move them from clearnow.com to pay for automatic withdrawal rent from their account and automatic deposit into my account, mm-hmm. When I seller finance, it's a very smooth transition. I use FCI Lender Services in California, and then they just switch over the automatic debit from their account from clearnow.com for rent to FCI Lender Services that most people use for notes, and I use it for the seller finance. And then I charge them 8%, 30-year mortgage, mm-hmm. And that's a good way for me to cash out. So if let's say again, I had $112,000 in the property, rent to them with positive cash flow of $1,000 per month. Mm-hmm. They're paying perfectly on time. It's totally passive for me, mm-hmm. and then the tenants are then programmed and they're trained to do this. And then I sell the house for $208,000. Well, then I've now cashed out on the equity. So yeah, I'm getting 8% of $200,000. But if you actually do the calculation of what I'm getting on the $112,000, my cash on cash return is actually really good.
Right.
And then from a Dodd-Frank standpoint, you have to prove for Dodd-Frank, there's a whole thing with seller financing. You can't do more than one a year, and you can't have. There's a whole bunch of stuff with Dodd-Frank. So So I'm a chemist. I'm not an attorney, but I am semi-literate. My reading comprehension skills are good enough to pass New Jersey Ask for 3rd grade and 6th grade or 9th grade, whatever it was. So I actually read Dodd-Frank, and it's written in English. I understood it, and I see what the rules are. So one of the things in there is that you have to be able to prove that they can afford, that they can pay. Well, I have independent third-party records from clearnow.com that these people for the last 5.5 years have been paying perfectly on time. So if I ever get audited, I can say, here it is. I got their pay stubs. I don't even need their credit report. They've been paying me on time with better thing than that. Right. So that's why my seller financing is a little bit different. I don't seller finance. So people say, oh, I'm an investor. You're selling your rentals. Can you seller finance to me? It's not going to be worth your while because I'm selling it at full retail and a interest rate that's higher. And the tenants will refinance. We just refinanced one. I guess it was in May. It was 162,800 came out back into my Roth, and that's fine. So now I was able to redeploy the 162,000 somewhere else.
Gotcha. So you're doing all of this through your Roth. So obviously the returns are great, but did you initiate that thought to avoid something like capital gains tax, for example, to prolong your ownership, let's say, in that property?
Yeah, so that's the thing. A lot of people say, hey, you know, when you're investing in a self-directed IRA, self-directed 401k, you're not getting depreciation, all this kind of stuff. I say, guys, I'm not paying tax. What part of zero tax do you not get? Right. So what? All I know is like this. I was able to take roughly $150,000 of money I created $150,000 of Roth money by either contributions. I think the first 50,000 was contributions. The rest was done by Roth conversions. And then once I paid tax on that, that 150 is now whatever, $750,000. I'm not sure what the number is right now. And it's growing. It's growing at a nice clip. So it's not that I wanted to avoid the long-term capital gains. I want to avoid all taxes.
Right. Understood.
I want to avoid all taxes. Right. And now the Roth might be repealed at some point. But in the meantime, I'm off to the races. I can make as much money as I want. Now there's UBIT and there's a bunch of other stuff. And my goal is to just invest that. My goal was to really, you know, grow a tremendous amount until I realized, you know what, I have enough money for my routine expenses. I actually have enough liquid cash, liquid portion net worth to cover my special expenses. So I decided, you know what, I'm just not going to take that much risk. So I'm not looking for the huge returns that I used to look at. But when an opportunity comes up, boom, I hit it. And I just love the fact that I don't have to worry about, oh, another thing. Do you think taxes are going up in the future or going down? They're going up. I don't have to worry about it because this money, whatever it grows to, it grows. And the cash flow comes out. I have it open for 4 and 5 years, and I'm over 59 and a half. If I want, I can take this money out. Turns out I don't need it, which is I don't need that. That's a weird thing for me to even hear myself say. I don't need the money, but it's really nice. You know, I have a few $1,000s a month of positive cash flow coming in, a bunch of $1,000s a month that's coming in tax free. I'm not using it, so it's just accumulating actually. And then every once in a while, I go buy an apartment syndication somewhere. You know, when another 50,000 accumulates, I just go buy another apartment syndication. So
gotcha, love it, awesome.
Yeah. Roth. If there's one thing which I have to, one recommendation for consideration, I think there's nothing better than Roth. Nothing better than Roth. It's amazing.
Awesome. No, thank you.
Excellent question and great answer. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
And by the way, my answers are not authoritative. Remember, I'm a chemist. My goal here in today's presentation is not to tell you what to do or tell you what's right. My goal is to make you think. That's all I really cared about. And if I got you to think so you could figure out your own strategies and your own, you know, what's important to you and legacies and stuff like that, then I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. It's not like, oh, I am the guru and I shall tell you what thou shalt do. No, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'd really like you to think, because you're all intelligent people, and you can build upon whatever thought processes that I have and make them a lot better.
Typically, experiences and actions speak for themselves. So, Mark, by sharing your own experiences and sharing what you have been able to achieve as a chemist without degree in financial planning, you definitely prove that you can do it with any degree, and in your case with degree in chemistry. So absolutely great example.
Thank you.
Folks, anyone else? We have a few more minutes till, like 5 minutes till the top of the hour.
I saw Andrew was pointing his finger at his phone or whatever he's using there. So I thought maybe it was to unmute, but whatever.
You're on mute, Andrew.
You're on mute, Andrew. Okay, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I'm off mute now. How are you?
Very good.
Good, good. Yeah, no, thank you for that information. That was really good. I might check out your website and send you an email. I'm from New Zealand, so contemplating moving to New Jersey. So, yeah.
Okay. By the way, this land development fund is run by a guy out of New Zealand, and he does a lot of real estate investing here in the United States, mostly land development. And when I heard your accent, I wasn't sure if New Zealand or Australia, but I have a joint venture, actually 2 joint ventures with a company in Australia. And I don't know if you saw the one in one of the patents that I have there that came out in 2019 for the desulfurization of diesel. This is an Australian company. So until COVID, I was going every 3 months to Sydney, the New South Wales. And I love, but I have not been to New Zealand. My son has been to New Zealand. He loves it. Our goal is to get there as soon as COVID goes away, which hopefully will be in the next decade or so.
Andrew, you're on mute again.
Here we go.
We can hear you now. So are you in New Zealand now?
Yes, in New Zealand. So we're planning to move 2022 January to New Jersey. So
why New Jersey? I'm just curious.
We have a daughter. She's 21. She's in the equestrian side of things, and she's in the UK. And we'd like to really just start things in the East Coast of America and that side of things. Gotcha. But we'd also like to. I would like to get to the point of generating full-time income from rentals. So, yeah.
By the way, for whatever it's worth, so I've been living in New Jersey since 1989, and we're about to move to Bucks County, which is in Pennsylvania, just right across the river from New Jersey. And the reason why we're going to be moving there is, and again, I don't want to go into too much personal finances, but let's say when we have this liquidity event with the company in Australia, I'm going to be having a lot of money is going to come in as compensation, unfortunately. And so in New Jersey, once you hit a certain threshold, you pay nearly 11% state tax on income. That's, I think, 10.97%, whereas in Pennsylvania, it's 3.07%. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be living just over the border from New Jersey in Pennsylvania to be able to save 8% tax on, let's just say, many millions of dollars. And if we don't get the IPO, okay, then we just move to Pennsylvania, which is also nice.
Okay. Well, thanks for that information. Yeah. I've been obviously talking to a few real estate agents, and we'd like the kind of northeast area.
Okay.
To look at. So yeah, we'll just keep doing our due diligence and keep going from there.
Yeah, taxes are high in New Jersey. That's basically the issue. But
yeah, I see that.
But if you're making enough money, hey, so you pay the tax.
Yeah. So do your research, Andrew, before moving, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Happy to chat.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Folks, any other final questions for Mark? I know he threw a lot of information and a lot of information to think and mull over. And for those that want to reach out, his information is on his wallpaper. So feel free to reach out. It's mark@parttimeinvestors.com.
Thank you.
Hey, it's
Okay.
I was just going to say, I was looking at your website. Do you cover kind of like the variables, or like one of my biggest fears is I don't know all the kind of like pitfalls to look out for. Do you kind of cover that in that course?
Yes. So because I'm a chemist, and I'm not the typical national speaker that is selling. I mean, for example, in the book the free ebook about which real estate investment strategy is best for you, I cover the advantages and disadvantages of the 4 primary real estate investment strategies, which is rentals, flipping, wholesale, and lease option, and also the keys to success. So in my course, that's now there's 25 hours of information in there in 6 modules. What I do there is I'm pretty honest about the advantages and disadvantages of pretty much all the different things that I talk about, whether it's financing, whether it's private lending, funding, getting a real estate license. So I can't say that I cover absolutely everything, because I don't think anybody covers absolutely everything, but I do a good a job as I possibly can in being comprehensive, because I try to attack things. There's one thing we can learn in science, that we also learn in Talmud, that's another story, is to attack everything from as many angles as possible.
Mhm.
So I try not to let a topic go before I hit as many angles as I can possibly think, including the pitfalls.
Right. Thank you.
But I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I'm definitely not.
No worries at all.
Yeah, but I do cover a lot of pitfalls. Absolutely. And even in tonight's presentation, you can see it wasn't like, oh, here's what you must do. It's always if people think right, if people have the tools to make the proper decisions, then you can handle almost any situation. And that's what's really crucial. Knowing how to think right, not knowing exactly what to do. When you give somebody a recipe and then a situation presents itself that's not according to the recipe, what do you do? So that's why my training and my coaching is all about enhancing thought process so that you can handle different situations, not do this because I said so.
Right. Okay. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your comments. And by the way, I see as people are signing off, they're saying thank you. So I thank you for that. And in case we don't get a chance, Alina, again, I want to thank you very, very much for the platform, giving me the opportunity to speak to this group with really great questions. And I really enjoyed it. So thank you very much for the great opportunity.
Mark, likewise, we enjoyed having you on, and Matthew and I were both looking forward to this presentation, and we can see why you've provided a ton of value for everyone here. And I'm sure many folks that we'll be sharing it with will benefit from the recording as well. So folks, the recording will be coming probably in about 24 to 48 hours. Just be patient. If anyone wants to rewind and re-listen, it will be available, and it goes on our YouTube channel. So you'll be able to listen to it as well. Any final questions? Everyone's looking good. Okay, well, again, Mark, thank you so much. This was amazing. Appreciate everything, the presentation, comments, feedback, and all. And folks, as always, feel free to reach out, and everyone be safe and be well. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you very much. Be
Thanks,
well.
Mark.